Hey, peace and love, family. Islam. I know it's been a little while since I made a video. Right now, I have something like a summer cold, like my throat just messed up, kind of out of there. So I hadn't made videos in a while, but I did want to go over a topic for y'all, and I want to make sure I get this out while it's on my mind. And it's basically collective remedy versus personal remedy, and I wanted to make this display so people would understand, especially people in the temple know and understand that I'm not against the temple. I've joined the temple. But at the same time, the amount of knowledge and things that I found in the temple versus what I found out the temple were uh, overwhelming. And it was overwhelming the amount of knowledge that I found outside of the temple that is not being taught inside the temples. And not just that, if you try and bring some of this information into the temple, uh, you could be met with resistance. I won't say you absolutely will be, but in some cases, some instances, depending on the temples, there are different people that are adverse to new information that could definitely be beneficial. So, with that being said, um, I talk a lot about public versus private. And this kind of goes into it to some extent because when you get into what Moores call status correction, well, you could say as joining a temple, that corrects your status because you join and become a Moor, you get to be affixed to your name in that particular setting. The thing is, in law, that would constitute private because the Moor Science Temple is pretty much filed as a religious organization, and anything religious and law falls under family as well, which are both under the private side of law. So, if you are proclaiming your nationality in a temple, um, and when you do this, they give you a nationality card, they affix your L or Bay, they write it into their records. But if their records don't, let's say, go into a public database um, that are full of all the Moors in not just your temple, but part of your grand body, uh, then it's not a public status correction because as soon as you leave out of that temple, no one knows what's going on. You're not on the record anywhere else. So you have to understand that a lot of these people, even grand sheiks, just to be totally honest, they don't do any more than what is taught outside of their temple. So a lot of them haven't done what you could say public or private status correction, um, or at least not in let's say high amounts, because um, when you get into status correction, um, the highest forms of status correction, the things that make the most um, relevance when it comes to getting personal remedy, or on the public side, doing your court order name change. And along with that court order name change, you need to have written in or an exhibit basically that states not only that you're changing your name, but also your nationality as well, to be a more American, Aboriginal, or Indigenous national, American national, but not a citizen of the U.S. And these are specific things that have to be on that to get the full effect of what I'll say most Moors are trying to do when it comes to status correction on the public side. because with that document you can use it to go back and change uh, other records as well. And on the private side, pretty much the best document that you could do is the counter deed to your certificate of live birth. To put the claim against that there on the private side to do basically the things and get the remedies that people are trying to get on the private side. Now, let's go into a little bit further into what public and private are, so we can get into the personal versus collective. Um, Now, I just pretty much laid out um, the documents that constitute the public and private side status correction, or at least getting the remedies that people are trying to get on the public and private side using documents. And when it comes down to the Moorish Science Temple, I have seen one particular temple or body that does ask people to do a quarter of the name change, and I do applaud that effort because um, that's actually in line, I'd say, with the principles that the prophet set down, um, along with the divine constitution and bylaws. Pardon me. And let me get into that, actually. Pardon me, y'all, I'm sick. But these are divine bylaws and or constitution and bylaws for the Moorish Science Temple. Um, I'm not going to read all of it, um, but I really want to focus in on a portion of Act 6. And it's about midway down in Act 6 after the colon. But this is a new era of time now. And all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. Okay, so what I will say is that to be recognized by um, the said government and governments of the world, or nations of the earth, as it says, to do that as a member of the temple, either your temple will have to be putting people or its membership specifically of all temple members, body members, Moors that have proclaimed their into a national registry of some sort that can be referenced, or these people need to make individual efforts to proclaim, declare before their own government or governments of the earth their free national name and status and birthright, who we are. So, with that being stated, the temple, for the most part, most temples are not doing that. But people that are outside of the temple are. And that's just, totally unbiased truth of what's going on. Um, Whether people choose to do the public side or the private side. Um, the private side, I'll say, is a little bit more suit for people that in their Negro status either had more problems that need to be corrected, um, or for people that own their own business and can totally drop off the map and not have to deal with society as it is. And it'd be even better for these people to be operating on allodial land. Because it's hard to be totally private in these days. Not saying that you can't. I've operated in the private side for about 5 years, and just now exploring the public, doing my public side status correction, things of that sort. Um, and there's remedy on both. People that operate in the public and correct their public side, and this is not including people that are in the temple, but people out of the temple that are correcting their public side. Um, is getting put on the records. Like, you could argue that on the private side, if someone doesn't file it, it's not on the record. So technically, you if you don't do anything, the government, the said government and the nations of the earth wouldn't know unless you put them on notice with your private or common law process. But with the public side, that's dealing directly through the said government, and essentially what it's doing is restructuring the straw man. That's totally being honest. But the work, or the act, is being followed. I'll say Act 6 is being followed more outside of the temple than inside of the temple when it deals with Moors. Now, the people that are teaching, and I'd have to include myself in this, that are teaching more science outside of the temple, are teaching, for the most part, individual status correction. And what the people that are inside of the temple are teaching is a collective status correction, or a collective remedy, as opposed to a personal status correction and personal remedy. Now, the thing is, we absolutely need both when it comes down to this movement. On the outside of the temple, whether public or private, operating in good status, in your proper status, is absolutely necessary. Personal remedy is absolutely necessary. Collective remedy, though, as well, which is totally separate, is absolutely necessary as well. The thing is, we need both. And a lot of people that teach outside of the temple are not saying go into the temples, or um, go through the proper steps to get a temple to teach out of, so that the proper information can get out. And people that are inside of the temples, for the most part, the leadership are not suggesting people that are outside of the temple, but that have these certain remedies intact. They're not suggesting their services, and they're not bringing these people inside of their temples either to teach this to the people, which is a problem. There's no way you can tell me that these grand sheiks are not seeing what's going on and seeing people getting remedy out here. Now, I do understand they might be, I'll say, scared of some of the people that are outside of the temple, because you could argue that there's an element of Moors that are into what people deem as sovereignty, redemption, or I'll say the most correct um, designation that I'll give to these people, or to these Moors, or the Moors that are unstudied and not following proper processes to get the remedy that they're trying. And what I tell people all the time is, there's a real fine line between private remedy and making the news. When you do things right, follow proper procedure, you will get remedy. I bear witness to it. You know, whether it's direct or indirect, whether they want to admit that you were right or not, they will do everything to, you know, to make it look as if though they were in the right when they still offer you your way out and your remedy, from personal experience. Versus if you do something incorrectly, they will tax that ass. And you just might make the news. And I can see how that would be a deterrent for people that are, let's say, grand sheiks or leadership of such, that they don't want to be made example of for doing improper process. That makes total sense. The thing is, the people that are following proper process and proper procedure a lot of times don't have the heart to help the masses of the people to get a collective remedy. And that's really is what's needed right now, because most of the people that I've seen that do have answers and are teaching are outside of a temple. They're not inside. So if these people are outside of the temple getting remedy, and I include myself in this here as well, and are not trying to teach the same collective remedy or making plans of such to do things in those lines, they're out of line. Now, let's get on the temple and collective remedy. You'll hear people that are inside the temple talk about what the prophet did, how he got the first more or so-called African American Negro, whatever term want to be used, but the first person to be in Congress or be elected to Congress, Oscar the Priest. The temple got him in, and this was voting in a time in the 19 teens when there was no Civil Rights Act yet, and Negroes couldn't vote, supposedly. So it shows what the status is, and that we were able to get collective remedy as a whole. This is something we absolutely need. We absolutely do need to be able to get people in the offices and things of that sort, because that will bring remedy. However, congressmen, House of Representatives, city council, um, let's say even if we were to get a police chief, you know, these people can only do so much. So when it comes to collective remedy, we don't need one person. We need 40 people in one city, state, all running, to get the full collective remedy. Getting one person elected into an office is decent progress at best. It really ain't shit, to be honest. Because in this day and age, one politician ain't gonna get shit done. Not only that, when it comes to this collective remedy, let's say we get a politician in. Let's say we get somebody on city council. Or let's say we get a police chief. Now, next thing we know, someone gets gunned down in the streets. Or someone get violated by the police. Let's say they don't get gunned down. Let's not go that far. Let's just say someone gets violated at a traffic stop. They get pulled over for no reason, harassed, falsely arrested, and then, turns out, they really could be dismissed, or the charges could be dismissed very easily. A city councilman can't go down and help that person with their individual remedy that they need to beat their case. A police chief cannot go down and interfere in the judicial process, because he's part of a different branch of government. So the thing is, getting one or two people elected in a position ain't shit. We need our own city. We need everybody on our side. We need, you know, a majority of city council. We need a majority of senators, House of Representatives, police department. We need all across the board to get our collective remedy. In 2019, having one person in an office in your district, city, town, government ain't shit. If your whole temple is not, you know, going in and trying to take up a public office or everyone that's competent, then it's not enough. You know, we need much more people that are trained to do these kind of things. And, you know, there are only a few Moorish entities that are actually training people to be able to run government, just to be totally honest. So I can see how the people outside of the temple looking into the temple and they're looking at these people like, yeah, we need to get somebody in the office. You know, which, yeah, we need somebody in office. But that ain't enough. We need much more people in office. You know, people that are Moors that are running into everyday issues. You know, a single congressman is not going to be able to help that. A single, you know, city council is not going to be able to help that. We need much more. We need people that are trained on a one-on-one individual type basis to help people with lawful processes. So if someone has to go to court, you may not necessarily need a Moorish lawyer, but you can get Moorish counsel if there's someone that is trained lawfully to help you. The temple should be offering this. But what I will say is that there are much more Moors that are outside of the temple that are studying this kind of information, that are attempting themselves to get individual remedy for themselves because they know that, one, a lot of these grand sheiks in these temples are not going to fight for them because they don't know law themselves personally. It's just how it is. And I have to say, I've seen that myself. These people, for the most part, don't know law. I'm not going to say all, but a lot of them don't know law and wouldn't be able to get themselves out of a traffic ticket if it was incorrect, false, and on false grounds with no basis. We're not going to talk about someone actually being in the wrong, you know, because we know that with us, whether we're being honorable or not, people are coming after us, So, let's say somebody was in honor and was to catch a charge. How many of these grand sheiks can go down there and know what to do, know a proper process to talk to anyone or to stand up in court and say, hey, this person is not guilty and this is how it's proven, or this person is not in your jurisdiction, or would we be willing to even stand up for one of their own? I'm not saying that no grand sheiks are doing it, and I applaud that those that are, but most of them don't understand the nature of law, common law versus commercial, to understand the basis on whether the person was in honor or not, because they don't understand commercial crimes versus common law crimes. Pardon me, y'all. And that's one of the biggest differences, when it comes to what I get asked in law. People that want to have this diplomatic status but don't understand that your conduct, and if you injure a person or damage property, destroy property or something, that you're liable regardless. Unless you got a whole army behind you. But for the most part, anyone, is gonna have those issues. You know. Now, it's gone over public, private, remedy to a certain extent, individual and collective. So I've said all of this to say that we need both. You know, all of this is encompassed in our movement. You know, that's why there's a divine and national side to the movement, so that we can understand that we need the duality. You know, we can't operate without public or private or someone to assist us in both sides. We can't operate without individual and collective remedies because individuals are not a nation, but the collective needs strong personal individuals. If we don't have Moors that are actually in their proper status, actually noble and have land and allodial title and estates, things of this sort. So they have this personal protection for them and their families to be able to grow a nation, because a nation arises from families. You say, in my father's house, there are many mansions. I plan on there being many mansions on my compound for all Moors to be able to come down and do what they need to do, and sooner than later, we gonna be jumping this off. But we need Moors to correct their status individually and collectively. We need Moors to be strong on an individual level so that as a collective of Moors who have their status corrected properly, fully, and their estates in order, then we're able to do business and to take our place amongst the affairs of men, as the prophet said we need to do. We can't do that with people that are straddling the fence and basically runaway Negroes, then ran off the plantation to come try and join up with a free nation, but, never nobly corrected the things in that improper status. These are things that definitely need to be considered, you know, because really people, it's not good on either side right now, just to be totally honest. We're operating, you know, at less than capacity as a nation, on an individual and a collective level right now, because we have dogmatic people on both sides. They're dogmatic people in the temple just like they're dogmatic people outside of the temple. They're dogmatic toward their private process or toward their public process, and not really looking into it as, there's remedy in both ways. Just like people in the temple are, looking at their temple process, their private process, as this is the only way, when, to be totally honest, lawfully, we should all be recognizing each other because we are all Moors, and any division is bullshit. Just to be totally honest. I mean, the only division that is warranted amongst us is people that are totally out of honor and are not trying to be in honor, don't want to be in honor. They only looking for selfish gains and are sabotaging our movements. Those are the people, that need to be excluded. But the people that are actually professing to be Moors by nationality, as long as they're in a productive, positive, and let's say honorable mode of operation, there's no reason we shouldn't be trying to help these people. There's no reason we should denounce them, try and say this person isn't this or that, isn't lawfully this, doesn't have their proper charter or whatever. We should all be working to bring our collective efforts together, because there are Moorish entities inside and outside of the temple that are doing excellent works right now. And, in Houston, we're trying to bring all of these different organizations together so that there is individual and collective remedy. That's the difference. Out here, we're getting to the point where we're working together. There's still some major battles that we have to go through, I'll say ourselves too. But right now, our territory is one that I know that is doing this the best, I'll say. So, you know, I have my temple card, but I have my allodial nationality card as well. I understand that there's remedy on all sides for us. And I would suggest everyone that's listened all the way through this video to do the same. Join the temple. If it's good, productive, stay there. If it's not, find another temple that is, or, reach out to another temple that is operating better and see if, they can help you with getting a charter and starting your own. And if you still having trouble, reach out to me, drop an email in the comments, and I can get you set up, with some of the people that I know. We're going to be starting us another temple here in Houston as well very soon, because there are a few temples here. Some have been around longer than others. Some fell off. Some are popping up. But from what I've seen, a lot of them are not teaching a quarter of what I just spoke about. So if they're not willing to be productive and attempt, then I would suggest moving around or reaching out to us or someone else. But there's definitely remedy in the temple. There's definitely a reason why the prophet did what he did, and it was definitely powerful, even though there are a lot of people that are not using it to what it could be done for. There are a lot of temple leaders that don't understand the knowledge and the power that they have in their hands. And I don't want to play a blame game, but that's just what's going on, and things need to be done better. So points to remember: public versus private. There's remedy in both. Collective versus individual remedy. There's room for both. We all need help. We could all use help. And with everyone working together, we can get this done. Peace.